Now it is.
We're gonna freak you out. We have my name is Lee Hunsaker. I haven't said that. I'm Lee Hunsaker. I'm the producer and organizer of Hoot and Holler Stories. Is anybody brand new tonight? Like never been? Oh, awesome. Well, welcome. I'm so happy to see you. This has been an organically growing, is that starting to have feedback? An organic and beautiful community event. Thanks to people like Sweet Donkey, Dustin and Anne-Marie who provide this wonderful space. And of course to our storytellers who we will praise repeatedly later. How are we doing? Good? Okay. Anyway, I really appreciate the support here. I think that obviously we are filling a need because people need stories. Stories can save the world. I say that every time and I fully believe it. Tonight we have some really special stories for you. 7 brave people stepping up. We only have 1 repeat storyteller. Everybody else is brand new. So it's a brave thing to step up here and tell your story. So I'm thanking them in advance. I also want to thank in advance our DJ, Sam Lunsford. He is the man. I want to thank my husband and best friend, Jonathan and Tilly, for working the door. The bartenders, be sure to tip the baristas and the bartenders. They're working so hard. The food truck. I had to turn it off. She is also an author of the book, The Make-Believe in the Boogeyman Chronicles. And she has a YouTube channel, After Life Goes On, where she shares her ghost stories collected over the years. Can we please give a warm welcome to first-time storyteller, Gaylen Chauncey. It's just music, not say it all. Okay? I mean, it is like totally creepy, and that's why I picked it. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll hear this music about the house that I'm just about to describe. Okay? I am a paranormal researcher, investigator. I didn't go into this field to look into the world of spirits. Okay? I went into this field because I was scared to death and I was pissed. Okay? So, let's start from the beginning real quick. I have an identical twin sister, and ever since we can remember, we've always seen spirits. This is nothing new for us. They can be anywhere from shadows to balls of color, different colors and lights. Now they call them orbs, okay? And what we call the mist people, because they weren't solid, they were transparent, but they turned into mist like that. It was just, and my mom always taught us that ghosts can't touch anything. If they can't touch anything, they can't touch you and they can't hurt you. Okay, so we believed her, and eventually we got over our fear of the ghosts out there. So let's fast forward until we're 12 years old, and Mom and Dad decided to move into a new home. And I noticed that there were a lot of ghosts in the house, more than normal, but me and my sister just got used to them because they weren't really bothering us. So everything was cool. The only thing that irritated us was about a couple nights a week, you can hear this real sad piano music in the middle of the night. And of course, every time we got Mom and Dad to check it out, the music would stop and they wouldn't hear anything. Oh, I'm cool with this, cool with the ghosts, and no problem. And one night, a few months later, my sister wakes me, and she's grabbing at my nightgown. We shared the same bed, okay? And she's halfway off the bed. And she says, something grabbed me and pulled me off the bed. Yeah, right. You just rolled over in your sleep and fell off the bed. Yeah, I was convinced of this. So I grabbed her underneath her arms to pull her back up underneath the bed. She didn't budge an inch. She did not move at all. She was stuck. And I couldn't figure out how she was stuck. And so I get a better grab of her and I go to pull her up. And as I was pulling her up, it happened so fast we were on the floor in a second. Okay? Next thing I'm seeing is my sister is being dragged underneath the bed, and she's pulling me with her because she's still holding on to me, and I'm on to her, okay? And quick thinking, I put my feet up, and used on a bed frame and used it as anchors to keep us from being pulled any further. Okay? Something had a hold of her, and something was pulling her underneath the bed. I looked down to see what was underneath the bed, because I didn't know what was there. Okay, and what I saw made my jaw drop open, and my brain gets stuck repeating over and over again, this is not real, this is not real, this is not real. And let me tell you, I've seen some shit in my life by the time I was 12 years old, so for me to say that was something that was beyond anything I'd ever witnessed before. Coming from the floor, hitting the bottom of the bed was a light about this big around, okay, about that big around. So it's bluish and white, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And I noticed the wood floor around the edges of the light ripple like soft waves in the lake. And I'm just going, this isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. And that's all I keep repeating. And my sister's legs are in this light. And I can't figure out what is going on. I'm so shocked into being stupid that it didn't even occur to me to yell for help. I had no plan of action going in my brain except for it wasn't real. I couldn't believe it. So all of a sudden, I see this black mass come out of this white light, and it literally looks like it's crawling up my sister's back, it's going over her shoulder, up her arm toward my hand. Let me tell you, the look on my sister's face was beyond scared. I mean, I've never seen anybody look so scared in my life. And she's going, please don't let go of me, please don't let go of me. And I had decided if I lost and it pulled her, it was pulling me with her because I wasn't going to leave her behind, wherever this light led us to it. So I'm just going, you know, just being so stupid. And all of a sudden I hear this woman's voice go, scream. And I look up, and it's one of the Mist people, and this lady, and I go, you can talk? Because they had never ever said a word to us ever in all these years. Not one of them's ever said anything. So I was, shocked even more. And she bends down into my ear and says, if you don't scream now, you both will be gone forever. Okay? I didn't like how she said those words. I mean, who would? Okay? And finally, a coherent thought registers in my brain that, we might be in trouble here, and I opened my mouth and I screamed bloody murder, okay? What impressed me was the door opened up. It wasn't until the light was turned on that it let go of my sister, okay? So if I hadn't stopped her from being dragged off, I don't know where she would have, what would happen to her, or me too. So we could not convince our parents that there was something underneath the bed. I mean, counted ghosts all our lives. So this was something, fear. This was the first time we were truly terrified about something that was paranormal. And I kept explaining to my mom the argument going, it was physical. Because it touched her. I mean, it pulled her off the bed and was pulling her into the light. So only something physical could do that. And I'm 12 years old, okay? And the next day, they couldn't get us back into the room. The next day, my dad thought it would be a great idea to lock us in the bedroom. Okay? Saying, to prove to us there was nothing in there to be scared of. Okay? And he got us in there. And it was one of these old houses that had a skeleton key from the outside that could be locked. My sister was in the corner behind the door just crying her eyeballs out. She was terrified just so terrified. Now I'm banging on the door, just begging my dad to let me out, just begging him to let me out. Next thing you know, we're outside in the middle of the street in front of our house. Well, it didn't take long. We took full advantage of the situation and took off running. And we were screaming because we were so scared. Well, neighbors down the road caught us, okay, and brought us back to our house. And my dad and mom's turned to be shocked because there was only a bay window in our bedroom. It had no open window. There was no way to open it. It just didn't open. And the door was still closed and locked. And they didn't know how we got out of the room. And they said 1 second, got quiet all of a sudden. The next thing you know, they hear us screaming outside. So we don't know how we got outside. And they just kept asking over and over again, how did you get outside? How did you get outside? And we're like, we don't know, And so my dad's like, well, we're going back inside the house. First of all, I got tricked the first time because he tried to lock me into my bedroom, okay? So 2 12-year-olds went into nuclear meltdown. I mean, nuclear meltdown. And the neighbors were outside wondering what's going on, you know, so, and I'm talking screaming, kicking, biting him, everything. We were being very vicious. My grandmother showed up right then and there. Thank you, Grandma. I do not know what would have happened next. I don't think that if he got us in that room again, I don't think we would have gotten out the second time. And we still don't know how we got out. So she was so worried about our reaction to even going back inside the house that she took us with her for 3 months until they moved into a new home. My family found a new house, you know, and said, okay. So me being a brave one and said, okay, my mom was making one last trip to this house, and I decided that I was going to go there during daylight, okay? So I made myself go inside the house, and it wasn't the house, it was that room. Whatever was in that room was scaring us to death. And I opened up the door, and the sunshine's in. It was so warm and welcoming, and I'm like, there's nothing to be afraid of. I take a step in, and that fear just overwhelmed me. It was just a fear I've never felt before, and that inside voice was going, don't be tricked. You know, and I listened to myself, and I ran out. So, 35 years went by. Okay, it's a long time ago here. I know I look 25. But I go back and I decide to visit a place. And this is in California, okay? And so I go home and I go to visit. And luck would have it, a new family had moved in. They had a 3-year-old little girl. And I said, you know, my most innocent voice going, we grew up here, you know, and, you know, can I take a look around? And, you know, and they're like, of course, come on in. Love Californians, you know. And so they invited me in and everything. And we're sitting down in the living room chatting. And the parents are like, listen, don't think it's weird. And I was like, okay, you know, I am in California. And I go, did your family ever encounter anything with the paranormal in this house? You know, and I know that was the second time my jaw dropped open in that house because I knew I had this shocked look on my face that they would ask. So they're telling me that their 3-year-old little girl is scared of them in her bedroom. Okay. And they had to move her out of the bedroom. And I went, well, you know, okay. And they said we made it into the spare bedroom. Let me tell you how many houses I investigated. Why is the haunted room the guest bedroom? Okay, it always is. I get the in-laws, but you know, I mean, it's just I never could quite understand that. And I'm like, okay, but so they're like, well, let us show you her room. It was my sister's room. Okay, and I'm like, yeah. And so all of a sudden, the little 3-year-old grabs me and starts pulling me across the hall into the bathroom across the hall. And she's telling me, we got to go hide from them. They know you're here. Okay. So, and I had my video camera with me because I was playing the tourist, and I did get evidence of the spirits that were in the house. So I thought, okay, I got to tell these people the truth, you know, because I wanted them to be forewarned. So I shared my story with them, and I just wanted to make sure they understood, listen to your child's fear. Your child's fear is going on. I mean, there's one thing to say, you know, the green monster's in the closet, okay? It's another thing to see your child absolutely terrified because, yes, Virginia, there is really a monster underneath the bed sometimes. You know, so. Thank you, y'all. Okay, a little something to think about during intermission, discuss, talk amongst yourselves. We're going to take 10, 15 minutes at the most. We have 3 more amazing stories coming, so thank you guys so much for sticking it out. Stay warm, and thank you for so much for being here. See you in about 10, 15. Today, our next storyteller is a yogi and a peer support specialist who helps people find clarity, calm, and balance. But long before she ended up in Roanoke, her life contained no semblance of peace. Tonight, you'll get a glimpse into the murky past that made her what she is today. Please welcome Clarissa Clark.
evening. This is a story about a spirit of darkness and despair manifesting in physical form. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, before I get into the story, we'll come back to this, but I believe that I am a soul inhabiting a human body. And also that I feel like I'm skirting with danger even telling this story, because our thoughts create our reality, and I've been thinking about some seriously dark shit the past couple weeks while I prepared. So I don't know if this is permitted, but I did acquire some holy water, and it's here with us now. We may need it, not just for my story, but for a few. So I had this thing a lot in my life called sleep paralysis. Is anybody familiar with sleep paralysis? Show of hands. Wow. Okay, more than I expected. But for those of you who don't know, and even if you have had sleep paralysis, I think it's a little bit different for everybody that it occurs with. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what it's been like for me. I haven't had it in years, but from about the age of 10 or 12 throughout my 20s, up till the end of my 20s, it was a pretty common occurrence. And the way that it looked is that, and the way that it felt is I would be, I'd wake up at night in bed, frozen, and terrified, and trying to do everything I could to get out of the frozen state. And during this time, I would be flailing and lurching and even screaming. And I could hear myself screaming, and I could see myself flailing, but it was like I had two bodies, because I could see the one body and hear the screams, but then there was also a body just laying in bed frozen and terrified. Weird. So we'll come back to that too. Now I'm going to tell you about my friend Yvonne and a time in my life that was very depressing. I met Yvonne while we were waitresses at Kahunaville, a tropical-themed restaurant, complete with Hawaiian shirts. And even more notable than the tropical theme were the dynamics in which, repeatedly throughout the day, the lights would flash, and all of the servers would be required to stop whatever type of customer service activities they were doing, their actual job, and report to the front by the waterfall for dynamics, which is when we would do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. Important stuff. I did get fired from Kahunaville for, there was a lack of enthusiasm for the dynamics. My shoes were really dirty, and I was blowing lines in the bathroom. There was a lot of drug use in those days for several years. A lot of ecstasy, a lot of cocaine, a little bit of crack and meth mixed in. This type of stuff led to some major euphoria that I was really seeking at the time, but it also led to some extreme lows. And I was already low as it is. So kind of like when I wasn't on drugs, life just sucked. There was just a lot of despair, negativity, bad vibes all around. No joy, no happiness, no fulfillment. Not good. So Yvonne, of course, was involved. We were always together in these things, and she moved to Los Angeles, and I had always wanted to move to LA. So about a year later, I ended up in Los Angeles too. And after a brief stint of homelessness, I ended up moving in with Yvonne and her roommate at the time, Miles. And Miles was a makeup artist, and he worked on horror films. So he would be creating like these animatronic monsters and scary masks and stuff. And the vibe of his work really just kind of penetrated the apartment. And he was a dark person, and he had these paintings on the wall. One in particular, I remember, when I first moved in, I was sleeping on the couch. Miles eventually moved out, and I got his room. But I was on the couch right under this painting, really large, and it was like a guy sleeping. He was very dark and gray, and he was sleeping next to like a black pond with this dark tree over him. And I was on the couch sleeping, and the sleep paralysis really started flaring up at that time. So eventually Miles moved out. It was me and Yvonne in there. And I'm going to get to the part you've all been waiting for. Here comes the scary shit. I'm going to explain a little bit about the layout of the apartment so you can understand how this all went down. So here is the kitchen. It's like a galley kitchen, and it opens up into a living room that has a couch about where Lee is, a TV, and then here the hall goes forward and curves around into the bedrooms over there. So a pretty typical scene, you know, is that Yvonne's sitting on the couch watching TV and I'm around doing something. So here I am in the kitchen that night making, like, you know, some really unhealthy food that I was into at the time, like pastaroni. And as I'm preparing my meal, I noticed that the TV volume is becoming very loud. And when it gets to the point of deafening, I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn to Yvonne and say, dude, turn the TV down. But when I get to, my eyes go over to the living room area, and what I notice is that, yes, Yvonne's on the couch as normal, but the remote control is in the middle of the floor. It's nowhere near her. She's not turning up the volume. I make eye contact with Yvonne. She has a look of pure terror on her face, which quickly comes over me as well. Now, I don't know when I first saw this thing that I'm about to describe to you. This is a true story, you guys. I don't know when I first saw it, but by the time I saw it, I remember seeing it. I was over here crouched next to Yvonne, gripping her for dear life, probably crying and shaking. And what we were looking at was a black, shapeless, formless mass morphing and drifting throughout the living room. It kind of looked like smoke, like a cloud, and it just had negative vibe just permeating out of it. And this thing drifted on through up to the hallway, and I guess over to the bedrooms. So I never saw that again. And I don't remember exactly what we did that night. Like, I know we didn't turn out the lights, and the lights were on every night for the next several months. Yvonne only lived there for like another 4 to 6 weeks after that. She had planned to move out anyway. I eventually got a new roommate, but during the time she was still there, and she, like me, we have a lot in common, and she had also experienced sleep paralysis throughout her life. After we saw that dark entity in our living room, for the remaining time she lived there, we were both regularly woken up in a state of sleep paralysis. She claimed, you know, she had heard stories that when that happens, there's a demon sitting on your chest trying to suffocate you, I guess. You know, I don't know. Maybe so. But while I was preparing this story, I kind of had a revelation. This comes back to what I said in the beginning, that I believe I'm a soul. I think that all those years when I was experiencing these two bodies, with one trying to escape, now I actually think that second body wasn't a body at all, but it was my soul. And I was just like done with this world. It's a fucked up place, you know? Like, we just get, society comes in on us and tries to tell us who to be, how to act, what to do. And I'm a delicate soul. I couldn't handle that. So, let's see. Now, I know, I have the experience to know that dark forces exist. But I choose not to concern myself with them. And over the weekend, I did find a really great saying to finish this off. I used to be afraid of the dark, but then I learned that I'm made of light, and the darkness is afraid of me. As well, he is the host and coordinator of the Rocky Mount Ghost Walks. He is a fascinating character. Please welcome our new friend, first-time storyteller, Buster Williams.
I think he needs a muscle. How y'all doing? Good to be back in Roanoke tonight. Everybody doing all right? Yeah. A lot of faces. Oh, wow. Where do I start? Who here believes in ghosts? Can y'all hear me? I knocked in the microphone. Good. What is a ghost? Anybody know? Nobody knows. It's an old Saxon word. The old Saxons. It means a soul or spirit. Let's flash back to the early 80s. I was always been skeptical, blowing stuff off. My wife's seeing stuff. But nah, you know. I came home one day. We lived in an old house, it's an old two-story house. Had a spare bedroom where you drove around the driveway. Upstairs, I noticed it was sheer, looked like sheer curtains in the spare room. Like, what has she done that? I go in the house, later on I asked her, yeah, what's going on? And I went in there and looked, there's nothing there. We lived in that house for about 10 years. Heard all kinds of weird noises. Back door would open. We'd have footsteps. I'd go tearing through the house with a shotgun in my underwear. Nothing was there. You know, I'm in my 20s and I'm blowing it off, whatever. Rolling on up to about the early 90s. After living there for about 10 years, I rented a shop to do my motorcycle business in. Had a big history to it, heard all kinds of stories about it. Nah, I don't go for that. I was come to find out the place was an old railroad station, a stop, narrow gauge railroad that ran from Rocky Mount to Gretna, I believe. I was going one day from the front to the back part, which was the original depot. I just felt like I just walked into a wall. I heard movement, people talking, things shoved around, just all kinds of racket. I mean, it stopped me. I was like, wow. Another experience I had there, I was actually in the bathroom. It was my motorcycle shop. So. I saw a shadow come by. Thought it was my wife. And went back. Came again, I yelled at her. I said, Janet. I'm not supposed to tell her name. What are you doing? It stopped and looked at me. It was a 6 foot tall shadow. And I'm on the crapper. I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know, just after you start experiencing and seeing a few things, you really intrigues your interest. The equipment came out, which I'm not very sensitive. I really got into the equipment and everything. Another big thing that kind of changed my outlook, we were down at the lake one day, came back home, storm came up, storming, oh God, I love a storm. Excuse me. Ran outside, soaking wet, had on dive booties. The whole yard is like a lake, man. All of a sudden, boom, all I saw was white. I mean, I'd gotten hit, I thought. All I saw was white, and then I saw what looked like pearl-looking, translucent clear with like black shadows behind it. And then when I could actually see again, I was like getting paralyzed coming up my left side. That's why I have to have notes, I think, because it wasn't a direct hit. It was like a grounding hit where it hits near you, and then it grounds through your body and comes out the top of your head. That's why I have to have notes, probably. Probably fried a bunch of brain cells. But with the TV shows, excuse me, we had many investigations, cases. That's what really got me into investigating. I started collecting data, cataloging, researching, reviewing, analyzing data. Got a lot of printers into it, and then it kind of got it's all blowed up now. TV and all the demons and all this and that. But I'm going to tell you about another experience. We were at a Civil War hospital. It was a receiving hospital. Back then, they had the kitchens outside. It was like a 2-story building. We were upstairs, and the upstairs part had a comfort lady. So when you were the brass and you came in from the battlefield, you had a lady there for you. We were in there investigating, getting some hits on the equipment, a few EVPs, and I'm sitting there in the floor. It's summertime. I have shorts on. I start feeling a finger and then a hand running up and down my leg. I'm like, all right. I'm really getting into this shit. But I can sit here and tell you tales. This is real shit. I don't make this shit up. But I do want to say, probably one of my worst experiences, I'm a real deep sleeper. When I go to bed, I'm out. I don't hear nothing, man. I've been not getting much sleep for about a week. I was awakened one night, laying in bed. I usually sleep on my side, back, head, whatever. I woke up, I was on my back. I felt like something was on my chest. I opened my eyes, and this black mass was like right here. I'm like, oh my God. Like my wife, so she said, Jan, I said her name again. That's not really her name, it's my girlfriend. I like her, Jan, I can't breathe, man. It's sitting on my chest. Did you see that? She rolled over. It had gone up, and it was like a small cloud up near the ceiling. She goes, yeah, rolls over and go back to sleep. I'm like, yeah, I'm like laying there. What was crazy though, it went from like a cloud, it's like a black, smoky looking snake, and just slithered along the edge of the ceiling and down the side. She went back to sleep. But I do want to say, there is negative stuff out there. There's a lot of, we've been in contact with a lot of positive energy. Is that me? A lot of positive energy, but there is negative energy out there, and don't go looking for it because it's not easy to deal with, and it's a rough deal. I mean, truly. Thank you.
Unless it's feeling up your leg, then it's not so negative, right, Buster?
They didn't say that one.
Scout leader, and enjoys scaring small children. He is a third-time storyteller, joined us here a time or two and up at Floyd Fest, and he is a very brave human being to go first. It's always brave to go first, so please welcome Mr. Jeff Howard.
All right, boys. We've had a good day here in the great outdoors. It's been a great campfire. But it's getting late, and it's time to call it quits. Let's all get a good night's sleep. Well, it's time to go to bed, okay? A story? You want one? One more, okay. All right, one more, and then we're going to bed. Scout's honor, right? Okay. By the way, what are all these girls doing at a Boy Scout camp? Oh, that's right, 2017. Okay. All right. It happened a long time ago, but as best as I can remember, the story went something like this. Don't go to Burning Island. Don't go to Burning Island, said the old man at the dock. The scouts from Troop 256 had just gotten in their canoes and were headed downriver. They had a great weekend planned, going to Hancock State Park for some swimming and camping, maybe work on some merit badges, and their plan was to return home Sunday. But you know, sometimes things don't always work out like they're planned. And so as they paddled along, Jimmy got to thinking about the old man at the dock, and he turned to his scoutmaster in the back of his canoe and said, Mr. Sampson, what was that old man talking about? Don't go to Burning Island. What he seemed all upset and concerned about that. What did he mean by that? And all the other scouts joined in. Yeah, what about that? What was that all about? Mr. Sampson said, well, I'll tell you what it was about. Well over 100 years ago, Native Americans lived in this area, and they inhabited a small island in the middle of this river. And one night, nobody knows how it happened, but a fire started in the middle of the night, right in the middle of the island. It had been a dry summer, and so the fire spread quickly and consumed the entire island. The flames could be seen for miles away. Every man, woman, and child on that island was killed that night, burned to death. By the time the townsfolk got there, it was too late. They gathered up the charred remains and buried them in a mass grave and named the dreary-looking place Burning Island. Now, over time, the vegetation returned and the trees grew, and it was a pretty place again. But no one ever could live there. Several tried. But everyone complained that the place was haunted by Native Americans. And in fact, just several years ago, 4 college boys were camping there one weekend, and 3 of them ended up dead. The police blamed the 4th, who said that he murdered his friends. He maintained that they were murdered by Native Americans that rose from the flames of the campfire. Well, Mr. Sampson, did they send him to prison? No, he was so distraught by the events of that weekend that he was committed to the state mental hospital. But boys, we're not going to Burning Island. We're going to Hancock State Park. So let's start paddling, and so we can get there. And so they paddled and almost forgot about the Native Americans at Burning Island. And then the sky got darker and darker, and thunder started, and rain began to fall, and pretty soon the scouts were consumed in a violent thunderstorm, and Mr. Sampson knew that he'd have to get the scouts off the river, and so he told them, he said, "Boys, paddle over to that little island there, right there, and we'll hold out until the storm passes." And so they did. But he was wrong. The storm didn't pass. They were there, and it kept getting worse, and the wind was blowing, and there was just no way to take the canoes back out on the river safely. So Mr. Sampson said, "Well, we'll just stay here. We'll just pitch camp here and spend the night here." And so they did, and they put their tents up, and boys got a fire started for dinner and started to dry out. And Jimmy said, "So, Mr. Sampson, where exactly are we?" And Mr. Sampson said, "Well, I don't know. Let me get my map out." So he got his map out and laid it out, and all the scouts gathered round. He said, "Well, as best as I can tell, we're right here." And he put his finger on an island, and the words right above his finger were Burning Island. And Jimmy says, "Wait a minute, we're on Burning Island. We're not supposed to be here." The old man at the dock, Mr. Sampson said, "Look, if you haven't seen any Native Americans, have you, Jimmy? We'll be fine. It's just one night. We'll be out here in the morning." So they had a campfire, and occasionally a boy would yell out, "Don't go to Burning Island, don't go to Burning Island." And finally, they all settled down for the night. And it was quiet, and it was a night a lot like this night. A little bit of breeze. You could hear the crickets chirping. Real nice and quiet. And everyone fell asleep. Except for Jimmy. He couldn't get out of his mind the thought of the ghost of the Native Americans. And he thought he heard something out in a campsite. And so he grabbed the flap of his tent, and he opened it up and looked out, and there was a man with long black hair and war paint, dressed in animal skins. And the man turned and looked at Jimmy, and Jimmy did what any scout would do. Ah! and the whole camp woke up, and the scoutmaster was up, and the boys were up, and flashlights were out, and they were quizzing Jimmy. And finally, they looked, and they couldn't find anyone. So scoutmaster got them all back to sleep, and said, "Boys, we'll be out here first thing in the morning." So the dawn finally came, and as they were getting their breakfast ready, one of the scouts said, "Look, where are our canoes?" And sure enough, all their canoes were missing. And so Mr. Sampson went to his pack and got a cellular phone and called the sheriff's department. And they said, we'll be out, but there's been an incident in town, and it might take a while. And finally they arrived and said, "We have a suspect for your canoes, although we didn't recover them. A man broke out of the mental hospital here a couple days ago, and he's been sighted in this area. We're surprised he'd come back here, considering what happened to his 3 friends." And after that, Jimmy was never the same. That was his last camp out, and the man that escaped from the mental hospital was never found. And so, boys, if you're ever canoeing the Sandusky River in Ohio, and you come about 4 miles south of the town of Bucyrus, and you see a small island there to your left, don't go there. Sweet dreams, boys.
Thank you, Jeff Howard, warming us up with a little folklore before we start getting into some sinister situations. And thank you, Sam Lunsford, our amazing DJ, the staff of Sweet Donkey, Roanoke, Virginia. We so rock this. Please get in touch if you ever want to tell a story. Thank you to these brave voices. And thank you so much to everybody. We had a wonderful night, so be safe going home. Thanks.